The talking creature from the thicket. Not too long ago, a young man named Artyom and his girlfriend Lara decided to escape the noise of the city. Their eyes were full of hope, their hearts full of love, and their backpacks carried sandwiches, a thermos of tea, and a cozy blanket. Spring had been slow that year, but on that day, the April sun poured generously over the moss and tree trunks, and the air was fresh like cold lemonade. The forest began about 20 kilometers from the city, old, dense, and seemingly made for romantic walks. Artyom knew the place well from childhood, when he used to go there with his grandfather for mushrooms. Lara was seeing it for the first time, yet her eyes sparkled like she had returned to a home she had never known. They followed a winding path, chatting, laughing, snapping photos, and stopping at every oddly shaped tree. After an hour, they found the perfect spot, a round clearing edged with pines and a small stream trickling nearby. It was as if the forest had chosen this place for them. While Lara laid out the food, Artyom went to gather firewood. He didn't wander far, just past a nearby grove. But when he returned, she sat wide-eyed, holding something tiny, furry, and completely incredible. "Look who came to see me," she whispered. On her lap sat a creature, about the size of a squirrel, with long ears like a hare and a tail shaped like a fan. Its eyes were startlingly intelligent. Artyom immediately sensed it wasn't an ordinary animal. "Well, finally," the creature said, nodding at Artyom. "I see you brought firewood. Good. We'll freeze out here without a fire." Artyom dropped the log he was carrying. Lara gasped. "You talk," he croaked. "Well, should I stay silent?" The creature replied dryly. "You're not beasts after all. If you've come into my forest, you'll have to listen. My name is Vian. I'm the keeper of the clearing." Silence fell. Only the wind stirred in the branches. "Are you some kind of fairy tale?" Lara offered a piece of apple to Vian. He sniffed it, unimpressed. Vian turned toward the fire. Artyom managed to pile the dry branches together, and soon flames danced between the stones. Shadows flickered on their faces. Long ago, many generations back, humans, had we lived side by side, he began. We were companions, guardians, advisors, but then people forgot. Knowing became more important than understanding, and so we vanished into the deeper woods. The forest grew quieter. "Why did you come to us?" Lara pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "Because you came with open hearts. You didn't seek gain. You didn't bring speakers or leave trash. You brought peace, and I felt it's safe to speak." Artyom and Lara exchanged glances. For the first time in a long time, they felt that the world wasn't just beautiful, it was alive. "I have a request," Vian continued. "An old shadow has awakened in our forest. It once slept deep underground, but the world's noise and anxiety stirred it. If you're willing, I'll take you to it. Perhaps you can help before it's too late." It sounded strange, even frightening. But Artyom said yes, almost immediately. Lara followed a moment later. They followed Vian down a path that wasn't there. It didn't exist on any map. The wind seemed to clear their way. Roots rose from the earth to form steps. Soon it grew darker. Mist curled along the ground, and the trees became ancient, tangled and silver with moss. The air smelled like something otherworldly. "We're close," said Vian, his voice softer. "Here lies the shadow, the one that feeds on fear." They stepped onto a marsh. In its center stood a tree, twisted, black, with charred branches. Smoke curled from its trunk. Beneath the tree, something stirred. A mass of moving darkness, like living soot. She lives on fear, Vian explained. If we go and soothe her, she'll escape beyond the forest. It's happened before. Cities fell to war, hearts turned empty. But then we were many. Now there's only you. But how can we? Artyom began. Not with force, with heart. Show her she's not needed. He didn't finish. The shadow surged upward, screaming. He closed his eyes and said, "We know fear. It lives inside us. But we don't let it rule. We are not you. We're together. And as long as we're together, you can't win." He reached for Lyra's hand. She stood up. "I'm not afraid anymore," she whispered. And at that moment, the shadow screamed. Piercingly, then dissolved. Slowly, like smoke in the wind. The marsh vanished. Silence returned. Only the tree remained, now pale, covered in green moss. Vian approached them, exhausted but smiling. "You did the impossible. You reminded her, and yourselves, that fear is no stronger than love." They returned by evening. The fire still glowed faintly. Vian sat on a root, nibbling a nut. "When you go back to the city, you may forget all this. But the forest won't. It'll be waiting." "We'll come back," said Lyra. "We promise." "Then take this." Vian handed them a small leaf, covered in golden dust. "Place it between the pages of a book. If you ever lose your way, it'll show the path." They thanked him and left. Years passed. Artyom and Lyra had a daughter. And in their old book lies a strange leaf. It never withers, and when they hold it, they swear they hear the wind whispering. And it seems that from somewhere deep in the thicket, someone watches them with a soft smile and eyes full of ancient memory.